And as we are looking at, we're looking at a Webforms account specific to your office. And I'm going to do my best to continue admitting folks through the guest room. So folks might just have to wait as we move forward. So I guess when you show up late, you might just have to wait. Because we want to start moving forward here with time is of the essence. I am logged into a Korea Webforms account. And again, you access your Korea Webforms account through Korea, right? The Canadian Real Estate Association. We do have additional integrations with MLSs at times, and so single sign-ins that way. But ultimately, when in doubt, log into your Korea Webforms account to access. Log into your Korea account to access Webforms. Because of what we're doing, we're really just adding this additional component of document compliance to what you may already be very familiar with in terms of creating kits and using Webforms to create those client kits. So why might my account look a little bit different than yours? Because it's entirely customizable. And I'm in the little cluster of icons in the upper right corner, that little padlock where it says lock, unlock dashboard, so that you can add what we refer to as widgets, right? We refer to these as widgets that you can drag and drop these widgets onto your dashboard. And the one I might just add is this create transaction widget. I'm going to click and hold on the widget. I'm going to drag and drop that widget. And when it's in that kind of lavender violet color, I'm just going to release the widget, and it adds that widget to my dashboard. Now yours might say member dashboard, and mine obviously says agent dashboard. So just a little bit of differences. I'm not a member of Korea, so my account may look just a little bit different than yours. But that's how you can customize the look and feel of the kind of the landing page, that member dashboard that you log into. You can add these widgets to that dashboard. And really the idea is to provide you with some just very compelling content when you log in. One-click access to content that you have created, one-click access to create content. So that is the value of the widgets. You can also remove them. So if you don't have big value for them, you certainly can remove those widgets from your dashboard as well. So I'm going to lock down that dashboard. Looks like we'll have an opportunity here to admit some more folks. But just keeping in mind, I'm going to expand, I call it the service window here on the left, or navigation window. Opportunity here to access these features within Korea Webforms account. So forms, digital signatures, document management, right? And that is really the next big feature of this implementation, is to start using Korea Webforms to not only type up your forms and get those forms signed, but also to manage the signed ratified documents, those compliance components within that process. So the first thing we're going to do is create a transaction. And if you have that widget, I just plotted it to my dashboard. So I have this create transaction widget. So I have that. If you don't see that one, and now what I mean is, if you have it, use it. Use this widget to start the steps of creating that new client kit. So otherwise, we can go to the little transactions house here. Going up to the little house, we can see every kit that we've created previously. You can sort and filter and find kits that we've created previously. Also in the kind of cluster of icons in the upper right corner there, we can create a new kit, right? Opportunity here right from this section here to create a kit. That's the plus sign that I will use. So again, just to make sure everyone's kind of following, I went to the transactions section here. So where I can see the kits that I have created previously, and I'm going to use the plus sign there to add this kit, add an additional kit to my account, right? Because at some point, we have a referral, a prospect, right? I would encourage you to create your client kit at that first substantive conversation, right? At that first substantive conversation, you want to start that new kit, or I call them files too a lot, so that might slip in, but name your, who is this? Is it a listing? Is it a buyer? Is it a tenant? Is it a landlord? Give this kit a name. And generally speaking, client name, subject, property address, those are two very good features to use when naming your new kits, right? And I'm just gonna go with a couple I have here. I'm just gonna go with my friend here, Jolly Buyer, right? They are a buyer, they are looking to purchase property, and they've reached out to me to help them make that happen. So that is kind of the premise of this kit that I'm creating. But certainly, whatever type of client that you're representing, buyers, sellers, tenants, landlords, client name is a good feature as along with the subject property address, are two nice ways to name those kits. And that's, as I start with this name, we can certainly change it as we go through that process, right? As the sale process evolves, maybe once my buyer actually finds a property, we're going to have an opportunity to update the name of the file to include that additional content. One of the big steps here is applying a template, right? And yours might not look exactly like this, but right, this is what you will see. To apply these templates based on the type of client that you are representing, you want to add the appropriate template. This template will include a set of forms to type up the forms on the front end of that relationship. It's also going to include checklists for the compliance component. And again, they are separate, right? You type up an online form. Those are words on a page until someone actually signs and ratifies that form that you typed up. Then it becomes, in Creo Webforms, it's considered a document. And those signed, ratified documents are added back to or attached to these checklists. So mine is going to be that residential freehold buyer. This is the template that I would like to choose to add all this content to this new client kit. And again, just through my demonstration account, I do not have MLS integrations that you will have, right? And again, my hope, and without any feedback to this point of difference, you have MLS integrations. You can import subject property from your MLS into your transaction kits. So that is integrations that we generally have with Creo Webforms and the MLSs that provide those listings and properties. So I'm going to create this kit, right? I'm clicking here on create. I'm going to create this new kit. And this is where content is being added. Form set is being added. Checklist is being added. Content from the kit is being added to this. Content from the template is being added to this kit, right? So this information is being populated into my new client. And we're just gonna start up at the top here, the name of my transaction. Maybe just to show you that immediately I have an opportunity to edit or rename, edit that name. Right? As you go through that sale process, once Jolly finds a property, I can update or edit the file name to reflect that new information, if it's of value to do so. So that's within the name. There's also some status types here, right? So as you go through that sale process, you can utilize the transaction statuses to ensure that folks are notified of where the sale is in the process. So kind of keep that in mind as an opportunity to manage the status of your transaction files as you move through that sale process. As we make changes, we can save them, right? I'm going to click right on that check mark. I'm going to save the changes. I made a change to the kit name, and I am now saving that change. Every transaction kit has its own unique email address, and that email address delivers email messages and attachments to the documents section of the kit. And we'll circle back around to this a little bit more, but just as a general knowledge, every time we create a client kit, that kit has a unique email address. Any email messages and their attachments will be delivered to the document section of that transaction. So the email upload is specifically destination. The destination of that email message is the document section of that unique transaction. Right. I'm going to skip this one here. It's just a little download card if you want to save this kit as a contact within your email or other, you have an opportunity to do that as well. The one I really want to get to here is the menu, this little menu, because there's always good content to be found. We call these a vertical ellipse. So that vertical ellipse, it is an association with drop-down menus, and I will be pointing them out as we go forward through the demonstration. In this particular one, delete transactions, share them, add notes, apply templates, right? So just a good opportunity to continue to manage that transaction using that menu items. So menu items. The other one that you will see in here that I do not is that import data. So if you're not importing when you're creating the kit, you can certainly always access that feature as you're moving through the sale process. So opportunity there. And we're just using this little wizard. This little wizard is just giving me the opportunity here to just start adding details. Do I know any details? Do I have any dates or details that I'm going to start adding? Nothing's in this instance. There's no requirements. We'll see these little blue features are part of the back office link integration, that's why they're a little different font color, because they are part of the requirements for a link integration and pushing transactions to back office accounting for commission disbursements and taxes and so forth. That's why those fields look a little bit different. Otherwise, do we have any detail that we would like to add to this, to the subject property at this point? If not, we just click on next. Clicking on next. Dates. Any known dates. Has Jolly buyer, my new prospect, provided me with any dates and maybe we do. Maybe we have a proposed closing date, right? That is a link field, but it's also a field that I know. Jolly has told me there's a relocation perhaps, and Jolly says I would like to be closed and funded and moved in, no later than that date. So I can add it in. I'm just showing that you can, right? There's no requirements to add it in, but certainly if you have it. And these details in step 1 and these dates in step 2. And as I move forward to the contacts in step 3, right? These contacts will populate form fields. The dates will populate form fields. The details will populate form fields. So that's a big value in adding that content to your kit, is so that they will populate through to your forms. So good opportunity there for that. Close my screen for a moment. I'm also gonna, it's a good spot here just for a moment. I am going to type a little message into the chat section of our Zoom meeting here. Just want everybody to know we have this opportunity. I'll do my best to manage the chat, but certainly we'll have that. If you have questions as we go forward, we'll certainly try to review those, work them into the session, or answer them outright. So opportunity there perhaps if you do have questions as we continue to move forward through this demonstration. I just want to make sure that in the demonstration account that I have, I want to make sure that we have some access to a forms library. So I am going to do something like this real quick first. We can't hear you. Well, I don't know who "we" is, but I'm certainly providing audio as part of this. I guess if you can't hear me, then you can't hear me. I will type a response. How can I record this meeting? I guess you could check as a participant. You can check your little your Zoom control panel. Otherwise, it is being recorded, as I've mentioned, and I will probably have to mention a dozen more times that yes, this session is being recorded by me. And will be provided as we go through processing and uploading. We'll certainly provide that recorded content to the brokerage so that they can provide it out to the members of the brokerage. So do my best with the audio. Again, if you are, do your best to manage your audio on your side as well. Shut down other browser tabs. Make sure that you have quality internet connection. If you are experiencing audio lapses, consider dialing into the conference call. So it was not suggested it is not your connection. I will do my best to continue to enunciate and project my voice. So I will certainly continue to do that. But please make sure that all of your settings are accurate and correct, and shut down other browser tabs. If you have 17 open browser tabs, it's going to affect your computer audio. This is just how the internet works, right? The more processes that you have running, the more affected your audio can be within this webinar session. Make sure that you are on quality internet connection. If you are sitting with one bar and you are trying to receive both audio and video through the session, your session will suffer. Dial in to the toll-free phone call options. So as much as you are going to suggest that it's the presenter having issues with audio, please also look at yourself to make sure that your settings are accurate. If you're on your cell phone at a park, you might be having some audio issues. So let's not get too far down the rabbit hole of audio settings, because it seems like maybe only 2 or 3 out of 87 participants are experiencing it. So let's look at those 2 or 3 as having audio issues and not the presenter. So just going to set that out there. We'll do our best again to manage it as we go forward, but otherwise please also do your best to manage them as well. So creating our transaction here, just trying to find an account that actually has forms associated with it. So I want to make sure that the forms that are part of our session here, always happens with Korea, makes access to forms very difficult at times. So I just want to make sure that the demonstration I'm providing here shows some forms, because you're typing up these forms, right? You are typing up the forms in order to deliver them outbound to this referrals and clients. To type them up and send them outbound for signatures and initials. And what we're really just pausing for a moment. Getting back on track here, it just becomes difficult to try to both manage your expectations on audio, but also moved through the demonstration in a smooth and opportune way. So I apologize going forward, I'm not going to address audio options or issues that you might be experiencing. We're just going to move forward here where time is of the essence to cover the content that we can during this webinar session. So I apologize if your audio is not good, dial into the conference call, period. Starting up a new transaction kit here, just to make sure we're going to use a lot of the same information. There is that MLS integration. So I do want to just choosing the template. You have the integrations with MLS so that you can pull content into subject property into your transaction kits. If anybody has a kit and they would like to provide, or excuse me, if anybody has an MLS ID they'd like to use, I'd be happy to import that into our kit. I'm going to be the cooperating salesperson. And again, we're just going to use this wizard, just kind of resetting, creating our transaction kit. I'm going to move through the steps of the wizard. Kind of talked about it a little bit, but here we go again. Creating this new kit for a Jolly buyer. Going to go through the steps of the wizard. Are there any details that we would like to add to this transaction? Again, not required, but it will populate forms. The dates. Clicking on dates, here we have an opportunity to add any dates, and I did, and I will again. I'm going to add a date here because it will populate my forms. So I'm going to start adding content. What do I know about Jolly Buyer? What information do I want to start adding to this transaction? And it's probably them. I want to add Jolly Buyer as a contact to this transaction. I'm going to create that new contact. And I use that plus sign. If I did it a little quickly, plus sign to add. And we're going to use that opportunity quite a few times. We're going to see that icon, and we're going to use that icon to add content and detail to our transaction kit. And they're a buyer. Jolly is a buyer. And I'm going to type Jolly's name. I may have done that before. It may be a buyer that I have used once or twice throughout the years. And their email address. These other features of legal name, preferred signature, this is if there are customizations that need to be made. If Jolly is not their full legal name, I can use the legal name field to populate my forms with that legal name. Preferred signature and initials are part of the AuthentiSign integration, so that if I know that they're a trustee or a power of attorney or an LLC, right? If I know they have a custom signature, I can use that information. And you're not going to use it all the time, but there's flexibility when you find yourself in those situations. I am going to save Jolly to my address book, and I'm going to save Jolly to my transaction file. Right, so I got Jolly buyer. Any other buyers? Spouse, sibling, business partner? Do we have those folks within? Do we need to add them to our transaction kit? We continue to use that plus sign to do so. This is really just the first time, right? So if that second buyer, third buyer gets identified further down the sale process, we can always go to contacts in order to add that additional contact as we go forward through the demonstration. So clicking on next, clicking next, that was the contacts. Here are the set of forms, right? This is the set of forms that was immediately added to the file when I applied that template, right? When I applied the transaction template, these forms were included. These forms are in my file. These forms are in my file. I can add additional forms. I can continue to add them if needed, but we'll stick with these for now. We'll stick with these for now. These are the forms I'm going to type up. These are the forms that I'm going to send out for signatures. And as I receive them back, as I receive back these signed documents, that working with a realtor, that buyer representation, as these are signed and returned, I'm going to add them or attach them to my checklist items. So we're going to have an opportunity here as I click on next. because now we're talking about documents, right? Now we are talking about documents within what do I want to upload back to back into my transaction kit. And just let me see here, screen one is sharing, yes, okay. Make sure we're sharing correctly, because we want to upload these documents back into our kit. Which documents do I have? Do I have any of them? Do I add any? Do I want to add any documents from my computer, from the cloud? Do I have these documents already? Has Jolly provided me with a loan approval or any other documents that I would like to add into this transaction kit? And I can browse my computer. That's what this is, browsing the computer. I have that opportunity to do that. Maybe we'll do that here in just a moment. Let's see, there we go. We can import from the cloud. There's the upload, right? Here's the email upload. So that email address unique to this transaction file, I can use that email address to forward conversations and attachments into the documents of my transaction. So I'm gonna click here, I'm just gonna browse my computer. I think it's a pretty common way to add documents back into my transaction. Have I received that loan approval? Have I received a pre-qualification letter? Have I received some documents from Jolly that I would like to include within this, my transaction kit? And I'm just gonna select one here. I'm gonna select that one. And maybe that one as well, right? PDF documents, Word documents, Excel spreadsheets, I'm finding them on my computer and I am uploading them into my transaction kit. We can also do it from the cloud. We can also do it through email and other ways to access those documents and include them within our kits. And those are the steps of the wizard, right there. Those are 5 steps of the wizard, just walking us through, and really what they just walked us through: details, dates, contacts, forms, and documents, right? Those are the features of my transaction file that the wizard just walked me through, those kind of prompting me to include this content in my new transaction kit. As I click on done with the wizard, now we can relaunch that wizard at any time. It's not really necessary, to be honest, because the wizard is just steps through details, contacts, forms, and documents. It kind of prompts us to get this content added into our new kit. And this, again, I apologize, I know he's kind of spent a bit of time there, but that may be very commonplace. You all may be very familiar with those steps. What you might not be so familiar with is this idea of this checklist. I'm gonna click here, I'm highlighting for emphasis on the right-hand side of the screen, highlighting for checklist, because these are the compliance components. These are the documents that will need to be reviewed by the office for compliance to ensure that we have a complete file at the end of the sale process. And this is really just the first place. I first just want to introduce it to you that yes, this is a checklist, right? The office has created this content. It was included in my transaction template. When I applied that template, when I added, or not that one, sorry. When I applied that transaction template to my client kit, this checklist was included. And these are not here, right? The rough trade, the agreement of purchase, the schedule, the waiver, the buyer rep. These are placeholders. I'm going to receive these documents as we move through the sale process. I'm going to type up that buyer representation form. My client is going to sign that, and I'm going to attach the signed ratified document to my checklist. So it really does start as a form. It's a blank form that I'm typing up. I'm delivering out that form to be signed. That signed document comes back into my file, and I'm attaching that document to my checklist. Because the checklist is for compliance. It is to make sure that the office is compliant with the real estate commissions and CREA and the regulators and all those folks who are making sure that clients are represented fully and accurately. These are the compliance documents that we're attaching to our checklist items. And this is the first place to do it, right? This is the first place that I can attach. Let me just pick one just out of, just because it's here. I'm gonna scroll down and we'll just say it's this disclosure, right? Just so you can see, as I click on attach, where do I have the document? Is it on my computer? Is it one that I just uploaded? If I go to select from documents, it will show me the documents within my transaction folder. These are the documents I just uploaded from my computer. And yes, this is the document that I would like to attach to that placeholder, right? And that document is immediately submitted. So as I attach that document, it is immediately submitted to the office. The office is notified that this document has been attached and submitted to be reviewed. And there's a whole bunch of ways. This is the first way. Hopefully, just time is of the essence here, we'll get through maybe 2 or 3 additional ways to attach documents to their checklist placeholders. But there's nothing here. This copy of photo ID, there is nothing there until I attach a document to it. And I keep referring to documents. So let's go back. So this is checklist. Kind of all these items, as I'm in upper, I'm kind of middle right of the side screen, documents section, documents, right? Come back in as documents. Signed, ratified contracts, surveys, home inspections, right? These are documents. They're read-only PDFs. They're Word, Excel, image, right? These are documents that you are adding back into your transaction kit. Some of them are compliance. Some of them are due diligence, but they are all considered documents. The question really is, does that document need to be submitted into the checklist for the office to perform a formal review? Some are yes, some are no. So if I click here on submit, it's another way that I can attach the document to the checklist. And I want to be very clear here. The signed, ratified, the ratified, executed, final document. Those are the ones the office wants to review. The executed, ratified by all parties. The final. Those are the ones that should be submitted for review, not the partials. I'm not going to submit the one signed only by my client. I'm going to submit the one signed by me and my client. If it's a buyer representation agreement, it needs to be signed by me and the client. Once that is completed, then I'll submit the document for review. So the office can confirm that it has been signed by all parties, that it has been filled out accurately and correctly, right? So we're not submitting the partials, we're submitting the final, executed, ratified by all parties. Just want to make sure, kind of clear on that. Which one am I submitting now? I'm submitting, to scroll to the bottom here. It's the waiver. I'm not sure. I'm just showing how you can, right? Let me just make sure. I kind of got on a little tangent there. I apologize. Oops, close. And yes, I'm sure I want to close, right? I clicked right on the hand over the bell. And as I'm in the documents section of my transaction documents, and I've uploaded this document, and I'm going to submit this document into the checklist, because this document is the waiver. And I understand that it's not, but just play along with me for a moment as I select that as the checklist document, and I'm going to submit to the office for review. Right, so 2 ways to get your signed, ratified executed final documents submitted to the office for their review. And the office is now going to either accept your documents or reject them and send them back to you with a note as to why your documents have been rejected. Right? So hopefully you have filled them out correctly. Hopefully all parties have signed and ratified the document. And now when you submit the document, the office will approve it. If you have not done those things, if you have not accurately and correctly filled out your forms, had them signed by all parties, your documents will be rejected with notes of why they were rejected and opportunity to upload revisions. So kind of keep that in mind. But again, everything is kind of a document. And then you are submitting those those executed documents to your checklist for review. So let's go to forms now. Let's type up a form. We're going to send it through Authentisign to see another way to assign documents to their checklist items. So going over to forms, if there are questions, really haven't had any questions yet. It might be nice to actually have a question about what we're doing rather than questioning the audio and questioning the screen size and questioning these things about the actual webinar. How about some questions about the process? How about some questions about what am I doing? Am I doing it correctly? What are some phases? So those would be some nice questions to get just to soften all the other questions about how the Zoom meeting is going. So forms, we're in the forms section of the transaction. And for this particular one, we're going to type up this representation agreement because this is the one that I would like to submit to the office. I need to get this typed up, maybe this and the individual identification, right? We are establishing agency with this new prospect. So I'm going to click right on the form name. It's going to launch into forms edit mode. This is where the keyboard meets the contract, right? And I don't know if we need, I don't know that we need to go through typing up the form. We certainly can. We see some information from our transaction file has auto-populated into the form, but otherwise these are fillable fields. These are fillable fields. So we're typing up these forms. And again, if you have questions regarding how to type up a form, I'm happy to go through that. But really what I'm trying to show you is a path to get them, signed. And while through that path of getting them signed, submit them immediately to the checklist. So if you have questions about forms edit mode, please do type them in. I did see a question come in regarding transaction kit being locked, and it's most likely the checklist items. You cannot delete a transaction file when you have mandatory checklist items within that transaction kit. So we'll come back around to that. We can speak to that a little bit later in the demonstration, but just from a quick answer, correct. You cannot delete a transaction when you have required mandatory checklist items that have not been addressed. So transaction forms. Top center of the screen, transaction forms. So we are currently looking at the buyer representation. And we're just kind of assuming or playing along that I have typed up that form. I've typed it up accurately and correctly. And now I want to move from that buyer agency to the individual identification. I'm going to click on that form because that will save changes I made to the buyer rep. And I am and now I'm going to type up this individual identification. Question came in regarding time in the form. Irrevocable time. You might need a little bit more information or a little bit more details about your question than what has been provided. So we'll just keep moving forward. But we can see that these are fillable fields, right? We can see that these are fillable fields that we can type up this information within these form fields. or paste them, right? There's no restrictions from copying and pasting. So we can utilize those features as well. But we're typing up these forms, right? These are scrolling down these fillable fields. Something is regarding like BRA. Acronyms are tough for me. Buyer representation agreement. I'm trying to think that is what you're going with there. So transaction forms and buyer representation agreements. The other place that you can look to manage the address. Now, I didn't import anything into my file, so whether we can test this or not, but yeah, my guess is that this field should be your client's current contact mailing address. This field should not be populating with the subject property from the details of the transaction. If that is what's happening, then we should review that. Details of the transaction should be subject property. So if you're adding your client's current contact information into the details section of the transaction, that's what would populate. When you are adding the client as a contact, you can add their current mailing address there. So maybe I should back up to the transaction file so we can see those two differences. I can only see dates, no time or required example, irrevocable time, form 100. Okay, well, we can look for a form because we can go to File and New. We can go to New Form. It may be in my transaction already, but let's see if I can add this additional form 100. See if we can add that form to our file here and see about, there's the agreement. I think it's in there already, but yeah, it won't kill me to have it in here again. Just to find out the time. And again, the time may have to do with signatures rather than when you filled it out. So I guess I always have questions about a time. Certainly as documents are being signed, date stamps and time stamps are automatically captured electronically. Those stamps can also be added to the signature and initial tags that you are plotting. So when you are referring to these features of date and well, more specifically time, I don't believe that, and again, we can go look. When you say time, I guess here is irrevocability shall be by buyer until, not sure what it is that you would like me to type in here, 12 p.m. on the date, right? So when if you're suggesting that this field is not populated from your transaction details, it may not be a field within the details to populate time within the form. So that may be one where, yes, you will need to type that in. There will be instances where you actually have to physically type content into the forms. There are a lot of fields that are mapped: subject, property, address, city, province, postal, right? This information just populate tax IDs and legal descriptions and buyers' names and telephones and emails. So there's a lot of content that is populated. But if there's no field in the transaction details for time, then you will need to manually type that information into your form. So there are going to be instances where that is going to be required. Transaction forms. All right, just a good place there. Purchase and sale. Right, here I'm looking at all the forms that I currently have added to my transaction. And again, I can go from one form to the next. As I complete one form using that transaction forms, I can go to the next form within my transaction that I would like to type up. So buyer representation agreement. And as I leave one form, it saves the changes. As I leave one form, it saves the changes and goes to the next. So again, here's that time field that you're referring to. And yes, that's going to have to be a field that's typed in rather than auto-populated. But as we type up these forms, we are going to then want to send them out for signatures. And I'm going to the same place, right? Transaction forms. Just make sure I didn't miss any questions. Those came in. And maybe we can go back to the transaction file in a moment to discuss the differences between the different property addresses. But I would like to send this. I'm going to select this form, and I'm selecting this form using that larger select circle. I'm selecting the buyer representation. I'm selecting the individual identification, right? I'm selecting these forms because I would like to deliver these forms outbound now for signatures. And I can use my basket. I now have a numeric 2 in my basket, top of the screen. Numeric 2 in the basket. As I click on the basket, I now have these options to deliver these forms outbound, right? How would I like to deliver them? By fax, by email? Do I want to print them to paper? Am I going to meet with this client? Socially distance, of course. Am I going to meet with this client? To have wet signatures, I think a lot of times now, and if not quite yet, moving forward, electronic signatures is a more and more common way to have your completed forms signed by parties. So I'm going to click there. I'm going to send these 2 forms. I selected them. I use my basket to access these utility features, and I'm going to click on the pen to send these forms into Authentisign. Now we are integrated with some other e-signature solutions. I believe DocuSign is another solution that's offered through Webforms, as well as maybe Faltor. They used to be, but they might not be anymore. I apologize. Sometimes I can't keep up with all the integrations, but certainly Authentisign, which is our proprietary solution, as well as DocuSign are 2 e-signature solutions that are directly integrated within the Creo Webforms instance. So I chose Authentisign, and we're just going to quickly run through a signing event. We have lots of other webinar sessions specific to Authentisign, and I know that we are either coming up quickly or going past our time allotment here, so just going to be very mindful of everybody's time and spend a little bit more on the checklist, right? So signing name, I'm just going to change this. I'm just call it the buyer packet, and who is participating in the signing event. And I think for this instance, it will be both myself and Jolly, right? We are both going to be signing participants. We are going to add our participants into this signing event. And right now I have it set as an inline signing, so I have a very specific order. If I didn't care who signed in what order, I could choose simul-sign. That was in step 1. Simul-sign is so that it will deliver the invitations to my participants simultaneously. Right now, I'm going to receive the invitation first, and when I complete my portion, Jolly will be automatically invited. If I chose simul-sign, we would both be invited simultaneously. But those are my 2 participants, so I want to add anybody else. So they were from my transaction. Do I want to add any additional participants? Add new, right? I add from my contacts, from my transaction. I can just add by typing in their information. So I want anyone to receive a copy of the signed documents. I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say I would like the lender. I'm going to type lender and their email address. Because Linda is not participating in the signing event, but Linda, in order to continue to move forward with the loan approval, needs copies of the signed representation and identification. Just making that up. But CC only, Linda is not participating. Linda has no responsibility to the signing event. Linda is going to be carbon copied on the final email with access to the signed documents. So I'm going to add Linda as a CC only recipient. They're more just a recipient of the final email with access to the signed documents. And this is AuthentiSign, system layouts. AuthentiSign recognizes the forms that we have sent over. And it is confirming that Jolly should be tagged anywhere there's a buyer one signature or initial requirement. It's confirming that I should be tagged anywhere there's a cooperating salesperson. Looks like for a ratified, I'd also need the cooperating brokered as well, but we're going to ignore that for a moment. I'm going to ignore it for this demonstration. You should not ignore it. You should add all your participants to have a ratified representation or other document once the signing is complete. But for this instance, yes, these are my participants. These are the roles that they are playing within the signing event. As I save those system mappings, AuthentiSign is tagging the documents with the initial and signature features. So we'll see that a little bit more in step 4. The one that I really want to show you here is in step 3, this opportunity to assign to checklist items. If, and here is the if, again, if this signing event ratifies the document, if this signing event ratifies or executes or the final document is achieved through the signing event, I'm going to assign that to the checklist. So yes, this signing event, myself, my client, my broker, we are all participating in the signing event. So at the conclusion of the signing event, we will have a ratified buyer representation agreement. I'm going to assign that to my checklist. Yes, once this is, if it does not, just ignore it. If this signing does not ratify, execute the document, then do not assign it to the checklist. Only use this step if the signing event ratifies the document so that it can be immediately submitted to the office for review. And so this would be the FinTrack. So in these two instances, these two documents, yes, all required parties are signing, even if they're not, for my demonstration. When you create your buyer representation, you are going to add yourself, your clients, your broker, you're going to add all these participants to your signing event. So that signing will ratify the representation and you can assign that representation document to the checklist. Right, but I think that's just it's an important aspect as I save that. Only use the assign to checklist if the signing event ratifies, executes, creates the final document that you would like to submit to the office. If it does not achieve those goals, then do not assign it. But we're going to go with it. In this case, yes, as I move in, do I need to add any more documents? Clicking on add documents. Just want to make sure that, yes, I can upload documents from my computer. I can access documents within my transaction, right? So I can include additional forms that I've typed up or read-only PDF, image, Word, Excel. These are documents that I can upload from my computer, import from the cloud, right? So I'm not stuck with just the 2 forms I sent. I can add additional documents to the signing event. So get them in here. If you need to have them signed, consider adding them to the event. Step 4, design. Clicking on the design step, because this is where we are confirming that where AuthentiSign has pre-tagged, and we're also going to drag and drop just to make sure that we have all appropriate signatures and initials within or on the document, right? So scrolling through, buyer acknowledges time agreement, blah, 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 and drag and drop. So this is not Andrew, right? I have 2 signers, myself and Jolly. So Jolly is going to, let's see, buyer acknowledges that the time period of this agreement is negotiable. However, in accordance, the time period for this agreement exceeds 6 months, it must. All right, so if it exceeds 6 months, we would add that initial. The buyer hereby warrants that it is not a party representation agreement with any other. I guess I would definitely want them to acknowledge that. because if they can't acknowledge that, then we should probably do not have a reason to proceed. So I'm going to suggest that this one does not exceed 6 months. So we'll just move forward. But drag and drop, if I did that a little quickly, that's a little flash up menu. Drag and drop, upper right corner, flash, right? And then you click and hold to drag onto the document. And there are no restrictions where you can add those features. But I can also remove them as well. I can also access this formatting menu to copy that one. I really like the copy. Create a copy of the initial, so as I scroll through the pages, if I identify any other areas that I want to right click to paste, I'm using the right mouse button to paste that initial. Again, there's no restrictions. I can paste it wherever I feel it would be, wherever it would be a benefit. And make that a little bit larger, make that one a little bit larger. And maybe I can add myself here. So I'm going to switch signing participant to myself. If I can bind the brokerage, I'm not saying that I can. I said if I can. I don't want to make any, but I can add myself there if it is accurate. Little gear circle to date stamp. I can even gear circle here, gear circle to name block, right? So that is the name. That's my name, that's my signature. So I can add those features there if that is appropriate. I apologize. I don't know that it is appropriate. If it is, please add yourself where you can. And I can even do that again. Click, gear circle to copy, right click to paste, right? If that's a benefit. I just like the copying and pasting feature. So I use that occasionally. Maybe I'd move that date. Maybe I'd move it to the acknowledgement date, whatever would be appropriate there as I continue to scroll through. Just confirming where Authentisign has pre-tagged and where I need to drag and drop or paste or add additional features, right? And we didn't really type anything up here. That's why none of these features are included. So, but again, there are some cool features in here. If you did forget to add something, that could be a markup tool. T for text, right? It's a little markup flash out. This is so I can add text boxes or strike something over. But in this instance, I click it one time, kind of activates that text tool so that I can come down and click and hold my mouse button, click and hold to drag, create that text box. Now I can type to add factual statements to the document. Right, so there are nice tools here within Authentisign to tag for initials and signatures, as well as mark up the documents in those instances where perhaps we just needed that little bits of additional information. But we're designing. We are now going to deliver. Now that we have designed, we've tagged, we've confirmed the locations of signatures and initials, we've drag and dropped some, we've copied and pasted some, shown a couple little features that would be a benefit. And as I click on next, I will show you where you can access support content for even more information. And I'm going to do a customization of the email because I do need to change this real quick. I'm going to make this, let's make this. I can also customize the conversation. And maybe do that for Jolly. I'll say, please sign, something like that. Or words of encouragement here to say, review and sign or call with questions, something like that. Right, so I have this opportunity to customize the conversation, the email addresses where these are going. As I save those little updates, I customize the email invitations just before I sent them, right? Now I'm sending that invitation to the signing participants. Now keeping in mind, I did a little inline signing here, so I am the first participant. Only I am going to receive the invitation. until I complete my portion, nobody else will receive that invitation. So apparently I, even though tried to customize, so I'm in the signing section of my Jolly Buyer transaction file, signings. Let's take a peek. I just got a message saying I didn't spell the email address correctly. So we'll make some lemonades out of the lemons. So very good. Thank you for catching that. Authenticate, so I left the L off of Gmail. So I'm going to edit right here on the fly, clicking on edit. And I'm going to add that L. I appreciate that, adding the L. And I'm going to save that participant. And it will, participant successfully updated and an email has been sent. So by making that quick adjustment or edit on the fly, Authenticate resent the invitation. So thank you for catching that. And then I'll also be able to see the history and the details as it goes through the signing event, because I am in my transaction file, right? I just happen to be in the signings section of my transaction. And I'm going to pause my screen for a moment. And if there are questions, please do type them in. And because I'm just going to open up my little Gmail account here so we can get into that Authenticate invitation and get some signatures going. And we're going to see those signed documents come back into the transaction. And because I did, I assigned those documents to the checklist item. So as the signing is completed, and only on the completed, I'm notified as the participants go through the signing process. I'm notified. I get email notifications that participants have completed actions. Once the signing is completed, or I should say if the signing is completed by all parties, then everyone will receive a copy, but not until then. Right? Only the final email is sent to all parties to the transaction once the signing is complete. So there's the invitation to myself. I have invited myself to sign. I'm going to start my portion of the signing event. And once I complete my portion, then Authenticate will release the invitation to Jolly. Had I chosen SimulSign, then both Jolly and I would have been invited simultaneously. We would have both received the invitation to sign at the very same time. But I chose inline, which then, I'm just going to click to accept. Click. I chose inline signing, so I was the first participant. I received the first invitation. I've completed 2 of 4 of my mandatories, 3 of 4, and 4 of 4. Right? So we can see it's added. It's date and stamped and name blocked and those features that I added as I complete my portion. And I opt out of the cloud account. Now Authenticate is automatically releasing that next invitation to Jolly. Now Jolly will be invited to sign. And if and when Jolly completes their portion of the signing, we will all get copies. When I say we, I will get copies both in my transaction and by email. Jolly will receive an email with access, and that other participant, Linda Lender. I added Linda as a CC only participant, so Linda will also receive a copy of that email with access to the signed document. And as I'm here, as I'm waiting for that to come in, I'm going to come back in and do a little refresh here. Let's see if I don't even need to do the refresh. I'm going to click right on the signing name. And right, I can start seeing the progress. And I should probably make sure I spelled this one correctly as well. Authenticate at Gmail. Okay, that looks good. So all my other email addresses look good. A little reset button here. This is a feature of this in progress, right? Because now the invitations have been sent. If Jolly comes back and says, you know what, let's go ahead and extend that representation for a full year. I can reset the signing, make the adjustment to my representation agreement, and resend out the invitations. So the only time you'll ever see reset is in this in progress. Invitations have been delivered, but the signing is not yet complete. We can reset the signing, make adjustments, and then resend invitations. So it does give you that option in those instances where we need to make some adjustments to our documents before they're assigned. There's the customized, customized subject and the additional message, right? So I got that customization into the invitation. And I'm going to start the signing. And this is Jolly, and Jolly is signed before. I apologize. There's a number of, I've used Jolly quite a bit, and Jolly is just going to click to accept all this details, right? 1 of 6. So Jolly can see mine that I signed, and were Andrew's signatures, and now Jolly is clicking to accept their required signatures and initials. And once they're completed theirs and complete their signing, and typically opt out of that cloud account, now the signing has been completed by all participants. And now we are all going to receive that final email with access. This is something like signing complete. Signing complete, the name of your signing event. That's how you get that email message. But more importantly, I think for our instance here, as I go back into my transaction, I'm going to go to my transaction documents, right? I'm accessing those transaction documents. And if I'm doing that a little quickly, I apologize. Let me just point out where I was clicking to access those features, right? That little 3 some people call it hamburger, some people call it pancake, but I was clicking on there to access, I call it the transaction window. That has the checklist, the documents, the signings, the forms, right? As I'm working in my transaction kit, kind of working from that right-hand side. Do I need to go to the forms of my transaction? Do I need to go look at the documents of my transaction? What feature of my transaction do I need to manage? So I'm looking at the documents, and the buyer agreement has been submitted. The FinTrack has been submitted. AuthentiSign submitted it on my behalf. In step 3, I chose assign to checklist. AuthentiSign immediately upon the completion of the signing event submitted those documents to the checklist, right? Because kind of everything is a document. As it comes back signed and ratified, it is a document. The question to ask yourself is it the final? Is it the ratified document that I want to attach to my checklist item? If the answer is yes, attach the document to the checklist. If it is not the final, if it's not executed, then do not attach, do not submit documents that are not ratified or executed or final documents. And that really is the big step or new step within using Webforms, is this idea of compliance management. There was a question here, and I know we're kind of screaming past our hour mark. Be very mindful of everybody's time. I did want to try to address a question that came in regarding, let's talk about the details of the transaction. This is subject property, right? This is the subject property information that's going to populate into the subject property of purchase contracts, subject property and schedules and so forth. So subject property in the details. The other spot, contacts. I added Jolly Buyer as a contact to the transaction, Jolly Buyer. Address. This is the address for their current mailing address, Jolly's current contact address, contacts, address. So this would populate any fields unique to that client's current contact requirements. So add them as a contact to the transaction and address tab there to get their current mailing address and other information. So again, under contacts, that's where you would put their current mailing address or current contact information. Under details is for subject property. If they're making an offer on a property, this is the detail that you want to add in for that purpose to populate purchase contracts and other offer forms that you need to complete. I'm trying to get past it, but this is really something that kind of hurts me internally. Is there any user manual or call number? Absolutely, and I apologize if it is hidden in plain sight, but absolutely. I'm just expanding the service menu. Maybe I shouldn't. Question mark with a circle around it. Support. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, toll-free tech support. And if it is hidden in plain sight, it is under the support section of the Creo Webforms account. And you can call in for assistance 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can access PDF guides and help videos and long play pre-recorded webinar videos. So absolutely all this content is here and available. I clicked on the pre-recorded because these are, today we went through learning path, beginner, TransactionDesk basics, how to create a transaction kit, how to use AuthentiSign for signatures. So as much as we have available is found here under support. Session 1, phase 2, there's AuthentiSign. If you want to go through, learn more about the AuthentiSign process. Created a file, now what? AuthentiSign in the counter offer, advanced transactions, advanced AuthentiSign, right? So we have these full-length videos available right through the support section of your Webforms account. The help videos are shorter. They're 1 to 3 minutes, very specific to an action. How do I upload? How do I attach? How do I? If your question starts with, how do I, you know, that those help videos may be a benefit. As well as the PDF guides. And I'm going to click here on guides. I just want to show a guide here that may be a benefit. And there's a whole bunch of them, but the search feature in the top, and I'm going to call it create and send a signing. I would encourage you to review this PDF guide. So maybe you don't want to watch another video, you don't want to take another hour, but you want to learn the steps to create and send a signing. It's a PDF document, screenshots and instructions on how to go through those 4 steps. And at the end of that PDF document, like the last 4 or 5 pages, talks specifically about all of those right-click formatting, the formatting for date and timestamps, for adding name blocks, for copying, creating a copy of the initial or signature. So the final 4 pages of that create and send a signing document or guide includes that feature. So could be a value there in those instances. So looks like another question came in. For some reason, it looks like I lost my, or covered the chat. It was covered. Could you explain how often, I think that's a great question for your office and for your brokerage. The question is, could you explain how often should we change the transaction status? Should we do it all the time? That's a question for your brokerage. It's really not a question for me. That is a question for the brokerage. Do they want you to update the transaction status? And if yes, at what junctures should you update the transaction status? So just to show that feature again, I'm going to access the house again, so I can see all the transactions that I've created previously. You can see that I've used Jolly quite a bit, but I'm going to re-access my transaction file. Clicking right on the file name, I can re-access that transaction and those statuses. But that is a great opportunity to ask the brokerage, what are their expectations of you in updating the status? What are some of good practices with individual transaction emails? Should we be CCing that email in all email threads that are related? Again, these are great questions for your brokerage. Do they want you to? It is absolutely available to do so. If you would like to carbon copy your transaction file on all email correspondence, you certainly can. If the office has expectations that you do, retain all of that correspondence, then yes, I would encourage you to CC your transaction on all correspondence to cooperating salespeople, to clients, to appropriate parties, especially if they're very substantive conversations. If you're just trying to coordinate a time you're going to meet at a property, maybe not the requirement to retain that conversation. But if you are having a conversation about the home inspection or about seller provided closing costs or concessions, or if it's a very substantive conversation regarding the representation or regarding a purchase offer or regarding substantive items within the representation or offer, I would say that those would be best to retain if your brokerage requires it. Again, these are great questions, but they're really great questions for the brokerage. I can give you my opinion. I'm an instructor for Lone Wolf. I can give you my opinion, but I think that the better opinion would be from your brokerage so that they can set the proper expectations of what email correspondence you should retain. But again, I would stick to whatever seems substantive to the representation or sale process. If it is a conversation about how they as the seller will provide up to $5,000 in concessions or closing cost assistance, that may be one you want to retain within your transaction kit. If it's something about what time should we do an open house, maybe not as essential to retain those. So absolutely. Question came in. So actual conversation is saved in the transaction desk, not just for uploading files. That is an excellent point and absolutely correct. As we utilize this email address, this destination address, not only are the attachments added into the document section, so is the conversation. That conversation within the email is a separate document. It will show up, it'll have a little precursor that says email and the subject line of the email message, and it will retain that conversation as a separate PDF document from any attachments that were included. So thank you for bringing that up, and thank you for that clarification, because you're absolutely correct. The email conversation is saved as a unique PDF document within the transaction kit. Absolutely correct. I go back to the dashboard. Again, I know I keep saying this, that would be very mindful of everybody's time, very appreciative of the opportunity to present. Apologize, we got off to a little bumpy start, but hopefully we had a very smooth and beneficial finish. This has been recorded or is currently being recorded, and maybe I'll sign off to the recording now. So anyone who is watching this recorded, thank you so much for watching the recording as I sign off on that recording. Have a webtastic day.